Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson, and we have several very good questions from inside the Red Raiders subscribers. But before we dive into those, I just want to say, man, it's homecoming this week. Obviously, Texas Tech is on fire in the top 10, undefeated, and it doesn't look like they're going to slow down anytime soon. So now's the time to get your Texas Tech gear. Rep the double T, and the best place to go to do that is Red Raider Outfitter. That's where I got this sweet hat. It's become like my favorite hat here, but man, so many choices. What a great selection of gear, all kinds of things at Red Raider Outfitter. So be sure to either go to one of their locations or hop online and check it out. So back to the questions. First one comes from Tech Freak, who asks, does Texas Tech still use analytics to determine if they go for it on fourth down? Yeah, they still have the book. Coach McGuire has said they still have the book, they still consulted, but he does go a little bit more on feel in terms of how his team's playing, whether it be on offense or even on defense. Like obviously the defense has been dominant this year. He's been erring on the side of caution because he knows his defense is going to dominate. But even going back to last year, he was going a little bit more by feel. They went for it a couple of times and got stopped. After that, the first year for sure was a huge success. Being aggressive, going for it on fourth down, it won them some big games. But he has kind of changed the way he approaches fourth downs and the use of the book and analytics and everything, to where he does allow for a coach's feel or intuition, if you will, which I'm happy to see. I know there are some people who are diehard analytics, and I'm not completely against that or them, that say, look, either you follow the book or you don't. There's nothing in between. But and I understand that to a degree. But on the other hand, sometimes if you're a head coach, you have a feeling we need a punt here or go ahead and take the points on a field goal, then you should do it. I feel like, and I'm glad that McGuire's changed up his approach a little bit there. Next question comes from OBX Raider, who wants to know my thoughts on the Kansas quarterback. Yeah, Jalon Daniels, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. I mean, you can argue in the country. He's a guy a lot like Baron Morton, who suffered a lot of injuries that kind of been a major setback for his career. But then last year, he struggled some, but kind of came on later. And this year he's been really good. He's a very efficient passer, good arm, he's accurate. He's a true dual threat in that, look, they'll dial up, design runs for him, and they're very effective. But he's also a very good scrambler. When things break down, nobody's open, and he'll just squirt out of the pocket. Next thing you know, he's moving the chains. So this is one of my keys to the game. I think Texas Tech, who, by the way, they're hosting Kansas 6:30 Saturday night at the Jones, of course, for homecoming. And that game will be on Fox. But one of my keys to the game is that when Jalon Daniels does run, the Tech's defense has to be physical with him. Now, obviously, I'm not saying do anything dirty. I'm just saying make him earn those yards. I mean, he's either their leading rusher or right up there. Mighty Joe was talking about in one of our videos that he's, I think at 50 carries or something like that. So he's getting a lot of usage. You saw it last week with Houston. They did some quarterback runs to some success. I mean, there was some success there for him until Connor Wigman got knocked out. So I don't know if they want to risk Jalon Daniels. Obviously, they want to win this game. They're going all out to win this game. But, man, if you lose your star quarterback for the second half of the season because you overused him in the running game, I think that'd be a huge mistake. But Jalon Daniels is a very good quarterback. In my opinion, easily the best quarterback Tech's faced so far this season, and it's going to be a challenge in that regard. TTU Braves Rock says Kansas's D has allowed at least 199 yards of rushing in 4 or 6 games. Could Texas Tech get 300 yards of rushing against them? And how do I expect the running back snap percentage to be divvied up this year? I think it'll be, or this week, I think it'll be about half and half, answering your last question first. Jacoby's been getting more carries, or he did last week at least, than I was expecting. But and then Cameron Dickey was more of a threat in the passing game as a receiver out of the backfield with that big touchdown, in the first half of the game against Houston. So they're both versatile. Obviously, they bring different things, but I do think it's going to be about half and half. I think they'd like to give Jacoby the ball more, though they like Cam Dickey a lot, and he's improving week to week. But, he's smaller, 5'9", 5'10", 185 pounds. So how much punishment can he take, game in and game out with that many carries? It's another thing to split him out wide and get the ball to him in space and let him do his thing than running in between the tackles. So it'll be interesting to see, but the way it's kind of felt to me, without even looking at the stats, it's felt like it's been about 50-50, and I think it's obviously worked. It feels like the running game's almost getting better in terms of if you factor in the competition and everything. It seems like the running game's getting better every week, and Jacoby Williams has been dynamic, versatile weapon the whole time, but I think Cam Dickey just keeps getting better, which is a great sign. And 300 yards, though, that's a lot. Could Tech get 300 yards? Maybe. But I think Tech's also going to have some options in the pass game. While Kansas is good at getting after quarterbacks and rushing the quarterback, their secondary, especially their safeties, kind of hit or miss. So there could be some big plays for Tech in the passing game. So I think it'll be, a little bit of both, where they really mix in the pass and the run. And, hopefully for Tech's sake, they keep Kansas, guessing. Elder Texan 79 said, do we expect next year's defensive line to be mostly recruits Tech developed or new portal players? And which line do we expect to be the strongest next year, the offensive line or the defensive line? Yeah, well, Jaden Cofield and A.J. Holmes could both return. I believe they're both juniors, and they've been very good. And there's another question later in this mailbag asking about some of the depth on the defensive line. But if those two guys return, that's probably your starting defensive line. Now, who knows what they would do in the portal. And in terms of high school, they're really loading up in the 2027 class in terms of getting pretty much like some of the elite high school defensive lineman recruits in the whole country. And some of those guys are going to be able to play pretty quickly. I don't know if they'll start over like a Cofield or A.J. Holmes, who have both been really good off the bench, but they'll be in the mix. Those guys are really, really good. You're talking about Jalon Brewster, the top defensive lineman in 2027. And besides, I think I have the classes wrong. It's hard to keep all the years right. So, but when those guys get on campus in a couple of years, assuming they end up signing, they'll be in the mix to start. Kadrian Redmond, Jalon Brewster, those guys, Antonio Underwood, those commits, and hey, check out the visitor list on Inside the Red Raiders, because there's another 4-star defensive lineman on campus, expected to be on campus for the game. So that's pretty exciting stuff. But I think they'll definitely is a strong word. More than likely, they will add at least one player to the defensive line, like the interior defensive line via the portal. And in terms of which the offensive or defensive line do I expect to be better next season? Well, they're going to be able to return some of their offensive linemen as well, some of their starters. We'll see with the depth in terms of if there's any veteran guys who haven't been playing, like a Hunter Zambrano, if he'll get a medical redshirt or not. I'm not sure. But it's hard for me to go to switch over to offensive line. So I'm going to stick with defensive line. It's the team strength. Obviously, you're losing a lot of good players, but they've been developing some young players. I think they'll go back to the portal. And then, man, in a couple of years, that defensive line is going to be really good. But it is worth mentioning that Tech has done really well with, and I don't think they'll be ready next year, but with high school offensive line recruiting in 2026. Felix Ojo, the number 1 offensive tackle in the country, he's also going to be on campus for the game Saturday night. Another question from Elder Texan says, does Morton's cadence have anything to do with the false starts? I mean, is he stretching out the time in stance for his play change? Well, I don't think it's his cadence, because it's not like in years past that, there's been a lot of false starts when Barrett Morton's been the quarterback. I think it's more just that they're doing more motion. The offense has changed. And I don't know if they're audibly more, but they are some. And there's a lot of motion and stuff. So, more than last year. So, and that's straight from Joey McGuire. So, that's something to watch. He talked about maybe simplifying some things so they can, just line up and run the ball sometimes. And that makes sense. You don't want to change the whole offense, because this is what Mac Leftwich, that's a big part of it. You want your players to play with discipline, even if they have to be in their stance for a long time. But that can be difficult for offensive linemen. So that's something to watch. But in terms of your question and Baron Morton's cadence, I really don't believe so. Texan44 says, can you deep dive into how the second and third string D line has performed in their snaps this year? He said, I know stats might not pop out, but a few times he's noticed them out there. They have plugged up the line well. Yeah, I didn't. I'm going to be honest, man. I would love to be able to do that. There's no way I could get done everything I need to get done, and like do a pro football focus thing where I go through everybody's snaps for the season. But I will tell you this. Couple of things. Shieldwood is a guy who doesn't mince words. He tells it like it is. And he has said there's been virtually no drop off. And I will tell you, I try to be the same way. And Mighty Joe and I talked about it. Jaden Cofield and A.J. Holmes have been great off the bench. Terrell Tillman also provides a pass rushing threat. Cheto Ophelia has also gotten some playing time here and there, not just garbage snaps, but here and there played some. And he's looked young and experienced, but I know they like his talent, 6'4", 240, I believe he is, with a lot of speed and strength. So keep an eye on those guys. But in terms of your question and how they've graded out, look, I think Lee Hunter and Skylar Gill-Howard bring just a little extra something. But A.J. Holmes and Jaden Cofield would represent one of the better starting defensive lines or interior defensive lines you've had in a while. Now, Jalon was great. Tony was great. Those two guys together, but they had to play so many snaps. They didn't have A.J. Holmes and a Jaden Cofield to spell them. So, going back to the earlier question, they'll definitely need some more depth on the inside. Though they like some young guys they're developing. But no, I wish I had time to go through and deep dive every snap by the guys. But most of the stats I've seen from the people I really trust. And things I've heard from them and just what I've seen and like what you said, what you've seen, there has been very little drop off from 1 to 2. There's just a little something extra with old Lee and Skylar. So, well, that's going to do it, man. Great stuff as always. I really appreciate the questions. Really appreciate you watching. And until next time.